commissioners are back so that we can resume our agenda. Douglas or Brandy, do we have, I see we have 120 attendees, so I want to make sure we're back in session.
Yes, Chair Norton, we're back in session.
Wonderful. Brigitte, would you mind presenting today the item 18, the racial equity statement?
I would be happy to. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tab 18 is an action item. Staff recommends the Commission adopt the racial equity statement included in Attachment A of the meeting material. The Commission's racial equity statement acknowledges historical and present racial inequity in the transportation sector and outlines the Commission's commitment to addressing racial inequity in our work. Staff posted a revised version of the statement yesterday on our website, which incorporates minor edits to address feedback received from external partners. The high-level actions listed in the statement will guide the Commission's work toward racial equity. However, we acknowledge that these actions may need to evolve and change over time. We welcome feedback from our partners to hold us accountable for making sustained progress towards the actions and goals of the statement. While the statement before you focuses on racial equity, the Commission is committed to supporting equity and, in particular, transportation equity for persons from all marginalized groups, including but not limited to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer persons, persons with disabilities, and persons who live in rural areas. Many of the Commission's upcoming activities, including our Equity Advisory Roundtable, community listening sessions, and internal racial equity action plan, will yield tangible next steps to guide our work to ensure transportation equity for California's vulnerable and underserved communities. That concludes my remarks, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
That's great. We would love to have Commissioner Alvarado. He has some statements to make, but we don't have any public comments. So I'd like to start with Commissioner Alvarado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, this is going to keep evolving, if you will, but I think just because they've been there for so long, I think I need to just let people know that Caltrans has been way ahead of most everybody in this issue. Not only do they strive for contractor participation, but in 1989, after the Loma Prieta earthquake, we had a pre-apprenticeship program, inner-city pre-apprenticeship program in Richmond. And Caltrans reached out and with the city of Oakland, created the Cypress Mandela Training Center. And this is not an exaggeration. Caltrans, with money, sponsorship, and even though their jobs are not covered by any of the local hire ordinances, have literally put thousands of young men and women into the trade. And the way we've structured this pre-apprenticeship program is when you graduate from this pre-apprenticeship program, you have direct entry into the union apprenticeship programs. So, and because they complete this program, they have a better than an 85% retention rate. So just kudos to these folks. Bijan was there through the most of it, but I just wanted Tox to know that that your folks out there are doing a really good job about reaching out to the community, women, minorities, people of color. They're doing a great job reaching out and putting kids to work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Alvarado, and very important statement today. We want to also recognize Commissioner Joe Liu.
Yeah, I'll just add on to Vice Chair Alvarado's statement by saying that, you know, what happened post Loma Prieta was a real effort to address transportation and equity issues with the 880 freeway that collapsed, and the resolution of that to reroute that freeway so it was no longer bisecting West Oakland is looked at. I mean, certainly in California, environmental justice history as a great victory. So it wasn't only the job training and effort that worked there, but it was also the taking advantage of that opportunity to redesign the freeway in a way that addressed the needs of the West Oakland community. That said, on his first day in office, President Biden signed an executive order that advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities. And never mind for the moment that he got more done on his first day than we seem to have gotten done in the last year. But in reading the executive order, I did notice that there was an important difference between his and ours, our equity statement. Bridget mentioned this, that in a sense, because the president's executive order goes beyond racial inequities, and he talks about other groups that have suffered from discrimination historically, including religious minorities, people who are LGBTQ+, people with disabilities, those who live in rural areas, and those affected by persistent poverty. So I know that the statement itself, if you just look on it in its face, only really talks about racial inequities. But I want to make sure that those other people who have been and continue to be, suffer from discrimination in transportation decisions and policies and practices, that we're not forgetting about you, and we recognize you, and we recognize your issues, and I certainly pledge to you that we're not going to ignore your needs either. But this is, I want to speak out in the strongest terms in support of the adoption of this racial equity statement. I think it's long overdue, and I'm very glad we're taking this action today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. We do have public comment now, and I want to make sure that we recognize public comment. And I will continue to call on commissioners as they let me know that they wish to speak by turning on their video or by texting me. In the meantime, I would like to get to our public comment, and then I have some comments to make later. Justin, can you let us know how many public commenters we have now?
Chair Norton, at this time, we have one written comment, followed by one attendee with their hand raised, wishing to make comment.
Okay.
So the written comment comes in from Dominica Smith. She writes, on behalf of LA Metro, we would like to commend you for this important undertaking. This racial equity statement is consistent with our adopted equity platform and similar efforts we are working on. As you move forward, we would like to partner with you on some of the initiatives highlighted in your statement. Thank you.
Great.
Up next, we have Pablo Gutierrez. Pablo, you're now self-muted. You are free to unmute yourself and proceed with your comment.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and commissioners. I am here today on behalf of my director, Komi Ajizi, to express SCAG's support of the Commission's adoption of a racial equity statement, outlining the significant work ahead to address racial inequalities across California. We recognize that our state's greatest asset is its diversity, particularly in its people. And if California is going to be the healthy, livable, sustainable, and economically resilient state we aspire to be, we need to work together to dramatically improve outcomes for communities of color. We know that transportation and land use decisions have shaped and are continuing to shape our communities and their residents' outcomes. Together, we must investigate honestly how our longstanding systems, policies, and practices, unintentionally or not, have created and continue to maintain inequities, and we must change them. In adopting this racial equity statement and committing to the work, what I refer to as our forever work, the Commission would be joining agencies such as SCAG that have affirmed their commitment to working to a more racially just, equitable future. We are committed to motivating more equitable outcomes from our policies, programs, and practices. We understand that the work is significant and that no one agency can do the work alone. This work will require significant collaboration across agencies, including those focused on transportation, housing, land use, and public health. We look forward to continuing to support the Commission's focus on this work and partnering with the Commission and other agencies on this critical work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now recognize Commissioner Yvonne Burke.
Thank you very much. And I want to commend the commission for this statement. I think it's first of all, it's dynamic and it's forward looking. The reality is in California, it's a totally changing almost every 10 years in the makeup of California and what makes the minorities and where the minorities fit into the overall operation of government as well as the economy. So this is a dynamic issue. The statement will be dynamic, and this is a great start. And I think that we have to be very sensitive to the fact that the numbers of California, the immigrants who come in and out, the people who are part of California traditionally are not static. And our challenge is one that's constant and very difficult. And California, of course, leads the nation probably in diversity, but it's the challenge that we have to look at. And this is very important. It's important that this statement is made, and it's important that we follow it and that we make sure that it is a reality. So congratulations to all of those who worked on it. And I look forward to seeing how it applies and how it is a dynamic concept. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your lifetime of leadership in civil rights and racial empowerment, Commissioner Burke.
Thank you.
With that, Commissioner Kehoe.
Thanks, Chair Norton. I appreciate that. I just want to add my comments to what's already been said. In particular, Yvonne's, very good description of this effort. I think the commission is really on the right path. This is not a done deal. I think as long as we're all together in this, it's going to continue to evolve. Just as she pointed out, the dynamic nature of the state's population and demographics constantly shifting. And so this is something that we are starting this conversation, but we need to continue to evolve and update it as we go. That's, I think, one of the key elements. And I want to thank Bridget and the staff and all the community partners that have commented in the workshop meetings and been involved with staff. I think these ongoing conversations are critical. And I'm looking forward to what the advisory committee brings us as they do their work. Thanks, Chair. That's my comments.
Thank you so much. I would like to add a couple things, and then I'll call on Commissioner Eager. One, because this is a dynamic and we are using this as the very beginning for the equity roundtables and our equity listening sessions, can you give us and the public an idea of what that's going to look like in 2021?
Yeah, Chair Norton, did you want me to respond to that?
I do.
I would be happy to. So I'm just pulling up my notes here. So as you mentioned, we have a lot of public-facing and really exciting work going on. Our Equity Advisory Roundtable will bring together subject matter experts and equity practitioners to help advise and inform the Commission on our equity efforts. We'll be convening a soft launch of the Equity Roundtable in February. This will be an opportunity for the Roundtable members to meet each other as well as state government staff and talk about what the rest of 2021 will look like in terms of our meetings. We are expecting the first public meeting of the Roundtable to be held in mid-April. We are currently working to finalize the date of the first meeting as well as the rest of the virtual roundtable meetings for 2021. And we look forward to sharing that information with our stakeholders. The other effort, Chair Norton, that you mentioned was our community listening sessions. We are organizing these in partnership with Caltrans and Calsta, and are really looking forward to holding listening sessions in different communities across California to hear about what the needs of the public are for their transportation infrastructure and the transportation system more broadly. So we are anticipating that the first community listening session will be held in spring or summer of 2021. And we look forward to continuing to update the commission and the public on these efforts as they move forward.
Thank you very much. With that, Commissioner Eager.
Yes, thank you. And Chair Dorn, I'm glad you mentioned that because that was part of my question is what comes next. Because I want to, first of all, thank the CTC staff for all your efforts on this. But I think it's been a common theme for all of us is, a statement is just a statement, right? And unless there are actions that go along with the statement, unless there are outcomes that we have at the end, it really means nothing. And so just to make sure that that's our goal, is that something actually comes out of this. The last thing we want is for us to be meeting with people across the state and then nothing come at the end. So I'm glad you talked about what it is that you're going to do going forward. Let's just keep that in mind, that there has to be something at the end of this that is an outcome that we can all be proud of.
And Chair Norton, would you mind if I add one more thing on that point?
Not at all.
So I did want to mention to the question of sort of our work moving forward. I wanted to let you know that the commission has recently created a new position focused entirely on equity and public engagement. We just finished advertising that position and look forward to bringing on a new team member really soon. That will really help us as our equity work continues to expand to have more dedicated staff to support it.
That's wonderful news. Thank you so much. With that, Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Chairwoman Norton. And first off, Bridget, I want to thank you and all the staff and everyone that participated to put this statement together, and also Commissioner Liu. I know he was very well engaged in a lot of the briefings that I was a part of. He definitely asked some questions. And so I commend him for really engaging the staff and ensuring that we had a powerful statement that was also inclusive of the commission to hold us accountable as well. So I definitely appreciate that. But one thing that I did want to share is that even though we are moving towards fostering equity, understanding that we have some understanding that community building, as we go out into partnering and listening and hearing from our various partners and stakeholders, that realizing that we're having these courageous conversations, because that's what they are. They're courageous conversations. There are going to be times where there can be uncomfortable situations, and we need to be prepared and trained. And the statement that we've provided and the tools and resources that we will be providing to our staff and to commissioners as well is extremely vital and important. But I always say, and there's a book that I have on my desk all the time, and it's Turning to One Another, Simple Conversations to Restore Hope for the Future by Margaret Whitley, is a book that I would encourage us as we continue to go out there and we talk about equity. And obviously this is something that is going to, we're going to adapt and be nimble, and things are going to change and progress because this is the world that we're in. And the way I look at chaos is a new birth for us. I don't think that the year of 2020, as we move into 2021, I think gives us clarity, gives us an opportunity to really engage in the things that matter. And this is one of them, specifically for our partners, for our staff, and as a commission. So again, I just want to applaud you for your efforts and your work, and Mitch, the entire staff. Thank you.
Thank you. We have received another public comment. Justin?
Thank you, Chair. This comes from Joe Phil Borgia. We thank the Commission for putting forth a bold statement that recognizes the inequities of the past, the critical needs of the present, and the difficult but measurable path to an accessible, sustainable, and equitable future. The past year has truly pushed transit agencies like SAC-RT to evolve to not only meet cleaner regulations and the changing nature of our riders, but to also deliver services amidst the pandemic, period of social unrest, and days of environmental challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, are there any other commissioners who, Commissioner Inman?
No, if there are no other commissioners wishing to speak, I would wish to make a motion, Madam Chair.
That's fine. Great.
So first, I want to join in the chorus of my fellow commissioners in thanking our staff and our community partners that helped us get our statement together, and to recognize the comments by my fellow commissioners that it's only as good as the paper now, it's the action and the work we need to do. But especially want to thank Bridget and the team for really engaging this with a caring heart or caring hearts and active listening and bringing folks to the table. So with that, I move to support staff recommendation.
Thank you so much.
Alvarado seconds.
Thank you. With Inman motion and Alvarado second, Douglas, can you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino, Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavoloni,
Aye.
Chair Norton.
Aye.
Burke, aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Burke. Madam Chair, the item is approved.
Fantastic. And now we are going to move on to item 19, the Advanced Mitigation Program update. Bridget, we're glad to have you here again.
Definitely. Tab 19 is an informational item. Amy Bailey, Chief of the Office of Biological Science and Innovation at Caltrans, will present an update on the department's Advanced Mitigation Program. The Advanced Mitigation Program was created by Senate Bill 1, and the purpose of the program is to enhance communications between the department and stakeholders to protect natural resources and accelerate project delivery. With that, I will turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Bridget, for that introduction. Good afternoon, Chair Norton, Commissioners, Secretary Kim, Director Omishakin, and members. I'm Amy Bailey with Caltrans Division of Environmental Analysis. I'm happy to present a brief update regarding the Advanced Mitigation Program Annual Report and Program Progress. As a bit of background, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017 and State Highway Code now reflects an established Advanced Mitigation Program in a separate account. $30 million annually for 4 years will be put into the account to develop mitigation intended to meet future transportation project mitigation requirements. Advanced mitigation is a shift in business practice of planning and implementing natural resource mitigation requirements from a project-by-project basis at the time of project permitting or just before construction to well before transportation project delivery. It seeks to accelerate project delivery and meet regional and watershed conservation goals and objectives. Today, I'd like to share our progress on the program as outlined in the annual report and our progress and plans for moving the program forward. Next slide. Streets and Highway Code identifies the requirement of providing the activity of the Advanced Mitigation Account to the Commission annually. Through the coordination with CTC staff, we've identified the following to be covered in the annual report: account deposits and expenditures, transportation projects that have purchased credits from the program, number of credits created and sold by the program, benefits of the program to project delivery, and it also describes progress of program development and implementation. This year's report includes the range of dates from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020 activity. Next slide, please. In accordance with our approved guidelines for the program and associated planning phase, we've made progress in several areas of the state. I'll take a brief minute to walk you through the top of the slide that outlines the steps of the planning phase and where we are currently. Step 1 is the statewide advanced mitigation needs assessment. It's completed to help us forecast anticipated mitigation needs. We have completed this assessment once to inform the efforts currently moving forward, and we'll update it every 2 years. We've just commenced this update and are starting to receive new forecasts. Step 2, identifying a more focused area of geography that we are interested in conducting advanced mitigation planning within to help our scope advanced mitigation projects. This includes outreach and coordination with our regional and local transportation agency partners to obtain their feedback to assist in determining which geographic area of interest we select. Step 3 is the development of the Regional Advanced Mitigation Needs Assessment, or our planning document. It helps us to synthesize anticipated mitigation needs over a 10-year period within the area. It identifies available mitigation opportunities, information related to conservation objectives. It evaluates this information in relation to the allowable expenditures from the account and the feasibility of implementing various advanced mitigation project scopes within the timeframe they are anticipated to be needed and potential alignment with various agency requirements. Step 3 includes a public draft of the document and a meeting where we accept comments and information and answer questions. It also includes an agency review period of 60 days to gain resource agency early feedback. Step 4 is where the district utilizes the information in the Regional Advanced Mitigation Needs Assessment and the information received during the public comment and agency review process to help scope and nominate an advanced mitigation projects for funding from the account. Step 5 is where we as a program make a recommendation for advanced mitigation projects to be funded from the account for approval from the Caltrans director. Currently, we have 2 districts that are in Step 4, project scoping and initiation. District 8 focused their area in the Mojave Desert, and they're in the final stages of Step 4. District 6, the planning area is the Great Valley ecoregion, and they just completed Step 3 in December and have begun the project scoping and initiation step. Next slide, please. A few districts are in various stages of completion of Step 3, the Regional Advanced Mitigation Needs Assessment. District 5 just held a public meeting on January 20th, and their focus area is the Central Coast, Monterey Bay, Pajaro, Salinas, San Francisco coastal subbasin. And they'll be incorporating public and agency-related feedback into the final document. District 1, Regional Advanced Mitigation Needs Assessment, is focused on the Mad Redwood, Lower Eel, South Fork Eel subbasins, and we hope to have a public draft out soon. District 11 is in the internal draft development stage, and their focus area is the San Diego subbasin. Next slide, please. In addition to the accomplishments I just outlined, the annual report also highlights the following notable program implementation achievements. Program guidelines were published. The Statewide Advanced Mitigation Initiative MOU was amended and added the Coastal Commission. Advanced Mitigation Process Agreement between Caltrans resource agencies was established and signed by all agency parties from the MOU, and it establishes a process for engagement in planning and implementation of advanced mitigation. The development of advanced mitigation project nomination, scoping, and programming procedures and document templates have also been developed. Statewide Advanced Mitigation Needs Report was made available publicly, and we've provided the public webcast on it. The current account activity has included the third of 4 $30 million annual deposits I mentioned, and has an approximate total of $92.5 million in the account currently. Next slide. As we've implemented our SHOP Advanced Mitigation Pilot Project, we found that many of the existing advanced mitigation tools and requirements don't or haven't recognized this new business practice of advanced mitigation. 2 notable efforts that will update and modernize mitigation tools or templates and assist with the advanced mitigation implementation include the recent public notice from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and including the potential agency participants in the interagency review teams for mitigation and conservation banks. This public notice updates their standard bank enabling instrument templates or existing instruments to accommodate advanced mitigation credit purchases in the state of California. This was in direct response to the Advanced Mitigation Program and the needs and close collaboration with our agency partners. Similarly, Caltrans is working with the Interagency Review Team and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation Sacramento District California Inland Sea Program on an amendment to accommodate advanced mitigation as part of their Inland Sea Agreement, which covers a really large geography in the Central Valley. These and other improvements to tools in alignment with various resource agency requirements are highlighted as recommendations in the AB 1282 Transportation Task Force report, where advanced mitigation is seen as a proactive solution to seeking certainty in permitting, as completing mitigation in a timely manner can be difficult during project delivery. Continuing to work on these recommendations will assist with advanced mitigation program success moving forward. We appreciate the support of Chairperson Hillary Norton, who is on the AB 1282 Implementation Task Force, and also Commissioner Inman's previous work and support on the task force. Thank you. That concludes my presentation for today.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments on this item?
There's no public comment at this time.
Thank you. And do we have any commissioner comments? Okay. This is a very thorough presentation. And so we want to make sure you know that the reason we may not have comments is that you've answered all of our questions. So I want to thank you very much for your time and for this very thorough presentation. And we look forward to working on the task force together.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'd like to move to item 20, the Inspector General report on the annual findings and recommendations. Ceylon?
Thank you, Chair Norton. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an information item. The Road Repair and Accountability Act requires the Transportation Inspector General to provide an annual report to the Governor's Office, the Legislature, and the Commission. The Inspector General is here to provide her report. I'm glad to inform the Commissioners that throughout the last year, Commission staff have been working cooperatively with the Inspector General's office, and we appreciate their help in their effort to fulfill the Commissioner's oversight responsibility. With that, I will turn it over to Inspector General Wanda Craft.
Thank you, Zeylon. Madam Chair, congratulations. Vice Chair Alvarado, congratulations, and the rest of the Commission. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today and for the opportunity to present our annual Summary of Findings and Recommendations report of the Inspector General. The annual Summary of Findings and Recommendations highlights the activities of the Independent Office of Audits and Investigations and the work that we have performed for the period of July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of my staff as well as their dedication during these challenging, unprecedented times as all of our work is being performed remotely. I'd like to thank CalSTA Secretary Kim, Caltrans Director Omashakin, and the Caltrans staff for their continued support and partnership. We could not do this job without their efforts. Thank you so much. I will be turning the presentation over to Chief Deputy Inspector General Diana Antony, who will be presenting on my behalf, as we had anticipated that I would be on jury duty today. However, I will be here through the end of the presentation, and I would welcome any questions at that time. Diana?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Rhonda. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for having me, and I'm here to present, as Rhonda mentioned, the annual summary of findings and recommendations for our office. It is for the fiscal year 1920. And so I will go over the report. As you are aware, the report, was issued in December, and it is on our website and available for the public to see. For today's presentation, I'll be focusing on really just the highlights of the report. It is a 70-page report, and so for the in interest of the time, and then also based on some recent inquiries, wanted to focus on certain slides for today. So with that, I think we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our office, as Rhonda mentioned, we have three primary areas. We have our investigations, and we have our audit office, and we also have our SB 103, which is the diversity small business development. So for investigations, the next few slides summarize our activity in this area. As you know, we conduct independent administrative investigations of alleged employee misconduct. We also assist external entities, such as the California State Auditor and law enforcement agencies in their investigations. So as noted on the slide, for this fiscal year, we received 85 new complaints of misconduct. We closed 24 formal investigations, and we substantiated 18 misconduct was substantiated. To note here is the 24 and the 18 are could represent complaints that have been received in prior fiscal years. So it's not 18 of the 85. Just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And this slide also shows kind of a breakdown of the substantiated items here, with the largest being the misuse of a vehicle, and then next to that is incompatible activities and conflict of interest. To note here is that we do have ongoing meetings with both the director and deputy director of Caltrans, as well as CalSTA, to share information and ongoing investigations. And that is specifically as required by SB 1. So kind of keeping everybody kind of up to date on ongoing items. I think next slide. Thank you. So although not included in the annual report, we wanted just something that we're trying to increase over the following years, is to kind of look at year to year to see is there anything that year to year might indicate. In this case, this is just showing 1819 in comparison to 1920. The blue indicating new complaints of misconduct, and then the gray closed investigations, and then red being the misconduct substantiated. Going forward, as we continue in both investigations and audits, one of the areas we want to focus on is really kind of peeling back the layers and looking at, of those that are substantiated, really drilling down on, are there recurring issues, and are there areas that need to be focused on? And again, we continue to do that and share information with Caltrans moving forward. So this is just an indication of just some additional data that we want to continue to share with Caltrans and stakeholders as needed. Next slide, please. This is the ethics hotline. Our office has an ethics hotline. It's a phone and internet-based multilingual service for Caltrans employees and the public to report allegations of fraud, waste, and abuse, employee misconduct, and or other ethics policy violations. So with this, as indicated in the slide, there were 237 new complaints reported. There were, again, complaints closed was 246, and 39 complaints substantiated. Again, this does not represent of the 237. This could be complaints that had been received in prior fiscal years. This again just shows just a snippet of what some of the substantiated cases were. Again, primarily in the misuse of resources, similar to the investigations that were substantiated. Next slide. This slide, again, similar to the investigations, we just wanted to do a year-to-year comparison. Again, while this shows there was an increase in some of the ethics or the complaints received or reported, again, we want to continue to focus on those that are substantiated. It kind of shows also a comparison of the 237, how many were some of the substantiation, but again, trying to focus on the areas that were substantiated, and we'll provide more information as we do already monthly with our director of Caltrans. Next slide. This is the diversity and small business development area. This area is headed by our Deputy Inspector General, Debbie Lumpkin, who is very busy collaborating always with Caltrans on the many things that Caltrans is required to do. As you know, SB 103 requires the Inspector General to review, audit, and report on the department's diversity outreach efforts. This slide just highlights some of the areas in fiscal year 1920. So again, so some of the highlights for that year is we launched and held quarterly IOAI Equity Task Force meetings aimed at identifying barriers for small business and veteran and disabled businesses. It also established a SB 103 dashboard, and then we also joined statewide and local diversity groups to establish regular benchmarking practices. This is in addition to the ongoing audits that we might do that are related to SB 103, and we'll see that in the next few slides. But this is just kind of key accomplishments in this area. I think that's it for this one. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is our audit summary. So the audit side of our office, this kind of summarizes at a very high level the audits that were completed for the year. This represents, I kind of see it in two major buckets. The first is the program audits, which is we completed 8 this fiscal year. Program audits focus on Caltrans program and policies. They include mandated audits required by federal and or state regulations. And they may also be operational type audits that are based on risk-based. This area, while I won't go into each one of those audits, each audit report is again posted to our website. But this area includes things like looking at the SB1 performance measures, the bridges, the culverts, pavement performance. It also includes things like the efficiencies measures. So that includes that area. And then in addition, as I mentioned earlier, it also includes any audits related to SB 103. This fiscal year, we performed a good faith efforts audit, disadvantaged business enterprise audit, and a compliance on prompt payment act audit. So again, I won't go into those in detail, but those are on our website. The next 3 areas noted here, local agency, construction, and Proposition 1B. Oops, sorry, can we just go back really quick? Sorry. So those 3 other areas there represent audits of more at the project and contract level. So these would be done at the local agency and or at the contractor level. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this is the local agency. Just to provide a little, some background or perspective on this, local agency audits may encompass, there's, up to over 560 local agencies, over $5 billion in funding that Caltrans provides to the local agencies to implement various programs and projects. And so we just wanted to provide a little bit of background on that. It's not included in our report, but thought I would share that here today. This is a summary, again, of some of our audits. Our primary purpose of the audits is to go out and look to see, are the projects being implemented as intended, and to see if the costs that are being claimed are allowable and in accordance with the agreements and regulations. And so what you'll see in the next few slides are audits that will indicate that we went out and audit, we looked at costs, and are there any questioned and disallowed costs. So you'll see that here in the green items there. So that's the local agency. Again, the local agency audits can represent very many different programs that Caltrans has. And so it's just not one program. It's not spelled out on here. I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So this is construction. Construction audits, again, is another type of audit that we do. Again, primarily focused on, are the costs being claimed, are they in accordance with the laws, rules, regulations, and with agreements and contracts. This slide shows, again, just some disallowed costs. And then on the right-hand side, as you can see, it has avoided costs. Avoided costs are those costs that have not been incurred. So that is a good thing. Those are costs that Caltrans has not paid out, but that we have looked at and audited and deemed either not eligible for those various reasons. And so those are good things that those have not been paid out and not incurred. Next slide. Proposition 1B. Proposition 1B audits are, again, at the local agency level, and again, very similar to the local agency audits I just spoke about. Again, looking at projects and the costs incurred, are they allowable or not in accordance with the grant agreements or laws, rules, and regulations, and then also to ensure are the projects getting done as intended. Again, in this area, there was 9 million, again, out of 1.5, close to 1.5 billion in audited costs. And then we give a percentage there, which is, less than 1% of the costs were questioned in this area. Next slide. And then this area includes the financial document reviews. These are not audits. They're, as noted here, they are reviews. Again, similar to the item I spoke to earlier, these are avoided costs. So these are things that we look at the financial documents of A&E companies that are going to be doing work and that are going to get a contract with Caltrans. So we review their financial documents to determine if the costs are allowable. Again, these are costs that have not been paid and not been incurred by Caltrans. So in essence, that's a good thing. They haven't been paid out, and so they are avoided costs. And then next slide. Thank you. So this is something that we added for our presentation purposes today. It's not included in the annual report, but just wanted to, again, probably looks a little busy, but for fiscal year 1920, it just essentially summarizes the prior slides that I talked about. Again, there's 1.5 billion in audited costs. Of that amount, 9 million or so were found to be disallowed or questioned. Again, that represents 0.6% of the total amount that we audited. So that was for 1920. And just a side by side, 1819, there was, we looked at over 477 million, and then we found 13 million in question costs. So it was 2% this year, 6.6%. So a little less this year, but again, it's just additional data that we thought is good to share. I think that is all the audits. I think we can go to the next slide. And then lastly, for audits and new last year, and we'll continue to do that on an annual basis in our annual report, is to include the status of audit recommendations. So this represents just the status of audit recommendations for 1920 for one fiscal year. And as noted here, total recommendations were over 200, open recommendations 170, and then closed are 43. And this would be reasonable since a lot of our audits have been issued, towards the latter part of the fiscal year. In addition, there's a lot of time for Caltrans to address those recommendations. To give just a little background on the recommendations, our office does request corrective action plans to be submitted at 60, 180, and 360-day intervals after a final report is issued. Our staff do review the corrective action plans received, and we do follow up as needed, including requesting any kind of documentation. In addition, as required by government auditing standards, there are those types of audits where we might perform a follow-up audit. It just depends on the subject area. Examples of that might be a lot of the SB1 performance requirements. We are kind of doing those on an annual basis, similar to the efficiencies audit. So we're there a lot, and we do follow up on prior audit findings. I think we can go to the next slide. Okay, and this again is not included in the annual report, but we wanted to just to share just progress. This includes since 17-18, just a 3-year look side by side. The red line indicates total closed. So these are recommendations that have been closed. And so you would want to see that, higher. And well, actually, this is a good thing. 1718, it does indicate all recommendations were closed. Sorry, I want to back up. This is just for program audits. Again, not the local agency or the Proposition 1B. We just wanted to show this on a program audit basis. These are the larger programs, the SB1 programs. And so that's what this represents. Just something, again, wanted to share a little bit of side by side. We are working collaboratively with Caltrans, and they are very responsive to addressing some of these recommendations as noted in the graph. I think we can go to the next slide, which will be my last slide here. So this is just kind of looking ahead. I won't go over all of these. These are just the continuing audits that we are doing currently for this fiscal year, and that we'll continue to do through the end of the year. So I just wanted to end here, but I do want to say in summary, in addition to the work that we're doing, I do want to thank again the staff, Caltrans staff, and our own staff. It's been a grueling year, I'm sure, as everybody has mentioned. But I think going forward, I think we're excited to continue to work with Caltrans. There's some good questions in terms of adding additional data, providing additional data, and then just looking at different layers to hopefully, with the end goal of improving the programs all around. So just wanted to end with that. And if there's any questions, Rhonda and I are here to answer.
Thank you very much. This is a very thorough presentation, and it's a pleasure to see that the audits that you have and the disallowed costs are less than 1% of overall work that's happening. We do have some comments today. I wanted to call on Commissioner Liu, who had some comments and questions.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I actually don't have questions of the Inspector General or her office. I was very impressed with the work, but one of the issues that they raised about the disallowed costs made me think about how the process is handled once you've identified those, even if they are 0.6%. There's still some money out there. And, you identify entities that owe Caltrans money that was paid out that shouldn't have been. And my understanding is that Caltrans then reaches out to them, they start a process and to collect the money. My concern is that if that process gets hung up, these are entities that we're awarding money to, allocating money to all the time. So there needs to be a point in which I think we should probably be tracking the status of those disallowed costs, and then have some policy in place where either based on a Caltrans recommendation or from our staff's judgment that money should have come back. And if it hasn't, make those entities ineligible for further allocations until they've settled their account. And I don't think we have a policy in place for that. And I'm not sure, I'm not even 100% sure about the necessity, but I just see this as being a potential problem. And I'd like us to have a policy so that we're not just arbitrarily doing things, making mistakes of giving people money when they shouldn't be getting it because they haven't reimbursed Caltrans for money they should have, nor holding back money when we probably should be just moving along and still continuing to allocate it. So maybe this is more of a question for Mitch or Caltrans as to how we can track and make sure we're not sort of getting out of whack on good practices for ourselves.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Commissioner. In at least one program, we do specify that performance in one of the competitive programs, performance on past projects can be a factor in the project's programming. And so what we can do is work with the Inspector General's office and Caltrans to figure out how we can track some of this, and then as appropriate put it into our program guidelines, because I think it's a good question. If there were somebody that owed some funds that wasn't paying it, we shouldn't be allocating them more funds.
Great, thank you. Look forward to it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call on Commissioner Davis next, and then Commissioner Burke will be after that.
Thank you, Chairwoman Norton. I was just curious where you find repeat findings, or how often do you find repeat findings, and what do you do with those entities with regard to sort of education so that they quit having repeat findings?
So I'll respond to that, Diana. So repeat findings as it relates to Caltrans program audits is fairly rare, as a matter of fact. And when we do find those things, it's repeat findings are not necessarily an indication of any type of systemic problem. It could be that it didn't get carried over into other types of jobs that they're doing. Could be a training issue, could be lots of factors associated with that. But of course, if we were to find something like that, and part of what the staff is responsible for doing is looking at the audits that have been done in the program areas before we initiate another audit. If we find those things, we have many different platforms that we can use to communicate those things to Caltrans. One of which is our regular meetings with CalSTA Directorate and staff. The other is the communication and collaboration that happens between the auditing staff as well as Caltrans staff during the development of the audit report and final report being issued. But yes, if we found those things, we would definitely communicate it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Burke.
On one of the commissions I work on, a national one, the Inspector General has found a variety of things, even from vehicle misuse to large-scale issues in terms of medical programs, where, in fact, right here in California, a program was being utilized in a fraudulent way in terms of medical care and some of the insurance programs. So the issues that they come across are of a wide variety of issues that affect individual employees. And I wonder if you do any of that, or if that's handled differently at Caltrans.
Well, we look into all alleged employee misconduct that is brought to our attention, either through the ethics hotline or because Caltrans management has referred it to us. But I think I'll answer that question by saying this. As Caltrans has been working on their strategic plan and in fact implementing it with a focus on people, stewardship and efficiency, equity and integrity, we're seeing that this is being reflected in the work that they're doing today. And what I see in response to some of those things or the issues that you're raising is that they are addressing employee misconduct where it exists proactively. They are implementing policies and procedures when needed to mitigate those instances, and they are strengthening their internal controls where needed. All of these things, in my opinion, is helping them to move towards that environment or that culture of excellence that I know that they're striving for. And so, you know, not trying to not answer your question, but I think what I'm saying is that I'm seeing improvements in those areas and not necessarily large scale misconduct that you're referring to, Commissioner Burke. I hope that answers your question.
I guess what you're saying is for most issues are resolved at the department level.
Yes.
Or at the sub-department level rather than coming all the way up through the agency.
Absolutely.
I mean, even contractors, some of those are all resolved at a lower level.
Well, Caltrans is really good about identifying where they have an issue. And as a matter of fact, most of the investigations that we handled have been referred to us by their management. And that tells me that they have sufficient internal controls to identify those things. And once we go in and investigate them, we make an investigation and turn our reports over to Caltrans management in their Office of Disciplinary Services. And as I said earlier, they're pretty proactive about dealing with those things where they need to. So yes, I would say that they are really good about addressing those issues and handling them before they get to a larger issue.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much. This is excellent work by you and your staff. And we were approved in the same day with Rules Committee. And so I just want to commend you on 2 fantastic years as Inspector General, really improving the investigations and rooting out issues that we need to know about. And we just want to congratulate you on a great start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now we'll move to item 21, the Caltrans Efficiency Report.
Commissioners, item 21 is a Caltrans information item. SB1 amended the Streets and Highway Code to include a requirement that Caltrans implement efficiency measures with the goal to generate at least $100 million per year in savings to invest in maintenance and rehabilitation of the state highway system, and that these savings be reported to the Commission. Caltrans was scheduled to present the 2019-2020 efficiency report at the December 2020 CTC meeting. However, it was decided to defer the presentation until the January meeting. Angel Pyle, Caltrans Chief of the SB1 office, is here to present.
Hi, thank you, Tim. Okay, quick sound check. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
All right, very good. Brilliant. Thank you. So good afternoon, Commissioners, Madam Chair, and Executive Director Weiss. I'm very happy to be here today, and congratulations, Madam Chair and also Vice Chair Alvarado, on your re-election. So very, very nice to see that. So my name is Angel Pyle, and I'm your Senate Bill 1 Program Manager with Caltrans. I'm very happy to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and discuss a few of the great things that the department is doing to continue to be more efficient. As a friendly reminder, the department has a goal to achieve $100 million in savings annually as a result of the passage of SB1. And I'm very happy to report today that Caltrans has exceeded that goal for the 3rd year in a row. A lot of care and diligence is taken in the compilation and subsequent review of this efficiency report. The report was submitted in early December, and I apologize for the tardiness of the report. However, the department has been working openly with Commission staff since the middle of last year and has shared portions of the report. Caltrans has significantly increased its transparency with the Commission staff during the review of this report, and we sincerely appreciate the Commission's commitment and attention to this effort. We've discussed the new efficiencies with Commission staff, and they have provided valuable feedback which has assisted in the refinement of the efficiencies. The department appreciates the Commission's insight, and we look forward to continuing these efforts with Commission staff. Today, I'm here to provide a high-level overview of the report, as well as highlighting a few of the efficiencies the department has implemented over the last year. Slide change, please. Also, thank you to whoever does that in the background. You do a fantastic job, so thank you.
Go, Brandy.
So this year, the department has 10 new efficiencies and 7 efficiencies that were previously implemented, in which the department continues to see benefits, such as replacing highway lighting with energy-efficient LED bulbs, for example. This year, we've also reorganized the report to make different categories much clearer, and we're going to continue to adjust as needed. So you'll see adjustments in the future where we can improve the organization of the report. This year's efficiencies also support safety and promote partnerships. Slide change, please. Thank you. This is the 3rd year the department has reported efficiencies. The department has continued to increase the efficiencies from year to year. For fiscal year 1920, the department has identified $340 million in total efficiencies, with $195 million going towards the SB1 goal specifically. Slide change, please. So I want to highlight a few of the efficiencies that the department has taken this year. This is by no means all of them, of course, but we just wanted to highlight a few of those. The first one that I'm going to highlight today is the use of open grade friction course, or OGFC. And OGFC is a porous overlay, so water flows right through it. So you can see with the pictures here on the screen, you can see the actual overlay, and then you can see a gentleman that's actually pouring water through through the pavement, and water runs through it rather than across it. So many of you have probably noticed, you might not have noticed when you're on it, but you've probably noticed when you're not driving on it, because you'll see the water spray from other vehicles, especially if you're in Northern California today and you're driving. So you've probably noticed that. So the additional uniqueness about this particular overlay, oh, slide change, please, Brandy, thank you, is that it catches pollutants and other debris from crevices and allows clean water to flow through. So typically Caltrans has to build a structural, what we refer to as a best management practice. So usually we have to build structural BMPs in order to meet our water quality commitments. Part of the beauty with this particular application is that we don't have to construct a separate device in order to do that. So that translates for a lot of good things down the road, literally. So Caltrans' Division of Environmental Analysis worked with the State Water Resources Control Board and regional water boards to obtain stormwater treatment credits for this strategy. And I'm very grateful for all of their efforts and appreciate that. Slide change, please. The second efficiency I'm going to highlight for you today is an example of applied research, and it's a 60-year design life for asphalt pavement. And yes, I said asphalt pavement with a 60-year design life. Caltrans has partnered with the University of California Pavement Research Center, and we continue to work together on these efforts. This efficiency represents a project underway in Sacramento on I-5. However, this is our 5th long life asphalt pavement project over the last 15 or so years. We're testing this strategy in other locations throughout the state, including on the heavily traveled 710 in Los Angeles. The strategy is the combination of 3 different elements which existed. However, we've made adjustments and combined them in a way that yields a benefit that is greater than the sum of its parts. The first is CalME software, and this represents a new approach to using mechanistic and empirical data and incorporates innovations in material design lifespans. So basically, this is the type of modeling, essentially. The second element is a supplemental specification for asphalt, and this represents the application of lessons learned to the existing specification and yields improved performance. The last element of the application is new test methods, such as a new approach for fatigue testing and rutting, which provide better indicators of performance. All of these combined together yield a 60-year design life and provide significant savings in deferred maintenance and rehabilitation over the life of the pavement. Next slide, please. This particular slideshow here shows the layers of pavement remain basically the same. However, we've made slight modifications in these basic layers, which yield great benefits. I'd also like to note that this is achieved with minimal additional cost up front. So I'd also like to thank John Harvey with the University of California Pavement Research Center at UC Davis, as well as Sergio Aceves, the state pavement engineer, and also the Division of Research, Innovation, and System Innovation. So really appreciate everybody's commitments there. Next slide, please. The last efficiency that I'll review is a relatively small efficiency in terms of savings, but the impact is significant. And we're really excited, or I get really excited about efficiencies such as these, and really appreciate the efforts of all of the great employees of Caltrans who are always looking for ways to do things more efficiently. So this particular efficiency is in regards to program supplements. And program supplements are the project-specific agreements that are between local agencies and Caltrans and a local agency. These agreements typically take a little over 70 days to execute. And Caltrans undertook a Lean Six Sigma process and reduced this 70 days down to an average of 20 days. And efficiencies such as this, they have significant positive impacts to our local partners so that we can get critical funds out to our partner agencies more quickly. And that's really what we want to try and do here. We want to be more efficient and we want to be good partners. So to give an idea of the volume and the significance of this, Caltrans' Division of Local Assistance processes approximately 1,200 agreements annually. And I'd like to extend my thanks to the Division of Local Assistance for their efforts on this. So it's a large number of agreements, and we do appreciate everybody's efforts there in getting this down. Next slide, please. So Caltrans remains committed to achieving our efficiencies. To this end, Caltrans organized a peer exchange focused on efficiencies, which was held in November. This event was a great success and consisted of 7 other state DOTs, 5 local agencies within California, our research partners in both the UC and CSU systems, federal highways, and of course the Commission. We're looking forward to continuing the efficiency conversation on multiple fronts. This concludes my overview of Caltrans efficiencies, and I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much. I wanted to see whether or not we had public comment on this item.
Chair Norton, we have no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. And commissioners, are there any of you who'd like to speak on the efficiencies today? I see Executive Director Mitch Weiss.
I believe Tim is going to come on and give our thoughts on the report. There was a pink item that came out.
Yes, please. Tim?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. I had to get my camera going. Yeah, I just wanted to call attention to the pink book item that was added at the end. Actually, I think it was a yellow. I'm sorry, at the end of last week. And there were a number of comments that we provided as part of our evaluation of the report. I just wanted to note that there are a number of efficiencies that we evaluated that we wanted to work with Caltrans on to better understand the basis of some of the calculations that went into some of those savings. And then there are a number of other a number of other efficiencies that we noted that we wanted to continue our conversation with Caltrans as it relates to whether these items would be considered a standard business practice or should be included as part of future efficiency reports.
Sure. We appreciate that, Tim. And I'll say that the department, we do take our commitment to achieving efficiencies very seriously, and we're always looking for ways to be more innovative and integrate those practices on a regular basis. So we look forward to working with you and the rest of the Commission to talk about that further.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We have no other comments, and I really want to tell you how much we appreciate your service here and the work you're doing on the efficiencies. So thank you again for your presentation. With that, I'd like to move to item 22, which will be our last item for today. And that is the Liberty Canyon Wildlife Crossing update. Laura?
Thank you, Chair. So Commissioners, tab 22 is an informational item. Former California Senator Fran Pavley, along with Beth Pratt from the National Wildlife Federation, will provide a presentation on this project that is currently being developed in Los Angeles County. So with that, I will turn it over to our speakers.
First slide, please, Laura. Well, let me just say good afternoon and thank you very much for the time here, and thank you to Madam Chair and the Commissioners, as well as Laura, for facilitating this and allowing us to give this presentation. It's been a goal of ours to complete the crossing over the 10-lane 101 freeway since the 1980s. But here's the good news. All the land for the crossing and the extended wildlife corridor has been acquired and is protected. The environmental assessment has been completed and approved. Elected officials in our area are enthusiastic supporters of the crossing, including Senator Henry Stern, Assemblymember Richard Bloom, and LA County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, and even Governor Newsom visited the site. But we would not be here today without the amazing leadership of National Wildlife Federation California Director Beth Pratt. So let me turn it over to her, because I know the hour is growing late and we don't want to stand between you and dinner. Beth, take it away.
Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Great. I'm coming to you from the Sierra Nevada in the middle of a blizzard, so I'm just lucky that we have power. So I will go fast, but happy to answer questions at the end, because I know we are approaching the end of your meeting today. Listen, it takes a village, and we couldn't do this without the incredible partnership we have, which I'll talk about, but especially Caltrans. And I know Barbara and Sheik, some of the main members of the Caltrans team, are on the call today. what are we trying to do here? We are trying to fix a wrong that we didn't know we committed, which was cutting off the Santa Monica Mountains from the rest of the world when we put the 101 in. And that had a significant negative impacts on the ecosystem up to the mountain line. And here's one of the newest kittens you see here. If you can go to the next slide. Their territories are being defined by these freeways and limited, so much so that they are inbreeding because they can't get dates outside their family because they can't get outside, you know, past the 101. This has become so critical that they will likely go extinct. Next slide, please. And we had an alarming discovery this summer, which is the genetic decline got so bad, we're actually starting to see birth defects, which is what popped up with the Florida panther before they almost went extinct. So that's the bad news. The good news is we're going to fix this. And if you go to the next slide, these are the newest visualizations we have released of the Liberty Canyon and what wildlife crossing at Liberty Canyon. You can slip through the next few slides and what it'll look like. It's an incredible project, a living bridge that will reconnect an ecosystem, not just for mountain lions, but if you go to the next slide, for all wildlife. And the same National Park Service research on mountain lions is showing that the genetic decline is occurring in the small stuff too, lizards and birds. So it's important we make this landscape right for everybody. Go to the next slide. This takes a village, and there's so many people involved in this. Yeah, Assemblymember Friedman, she is someone who's been a supporter of the project along with many others. But the 5 people or agencies that live and breathe this every day you see here, which is National Park Service doing the research, Caltrans, it's the road, Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains, who brings a lot of local expertise on landscape restoration. Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, who had the foresight to preserve the land, and then my group, the National Wildlife Federation, who came on as the last partner about a decade ago to do the education, advocacy, and fundraising. Next slide, please. And there's my cat wanting to make an appearance. Why don't we just flip to, this just shows you can read what the campaign will do. It's about the crossing, but also about the education and advocacy. The next slide goes at where we're at, and we just did some press today. We have raised $18 million, 3,000 donors from all over the world, and in the most challenging year, I think, in my lifetime to fundraise, we raised over $3.8 million in 2020. Next slide, please. We always envision this as almost all of it coming from private fundraising just because of the unprecedented nature of the project. There is some state money, but where the state monies are coming from and where we're still looking, it has to be dedicated to conservation. And that has really been our strategy. These phases are defined by Caltrans' phases, and here's where we're at. Feasibility study was done, bam. Environmental assessment, we raised $1.2 million. State Coastal Conservancy put that up. That was done and completed in 2018. We're now in final design and engineering. The cost is $8.7 million about. We've raised $7 million to date, and as Sheik, who's on this call, can tell you, we're going to have blueprints in looks like June or July. And then we're looking at the construction fundraising, which again, we don't have final cost yet, but anywhere between 55 and 78. And I am spending every living, breathing moment looking at securing the gap there. It sounds like a lot, right? We've raised $18 million on potentially an $87 million project, but the talks we've been engaged in for years is with leadership donors in the 30 million and 20 million and 10 million range. And they don't fund until you get close to blueprints. So that's where, that's where we're at. What I want to end with, though, is this is much more than a crossing. This is, and if we go to the next slide, this is a movement. This isn't just a few of us behind closed doors. You now have the world watching this one. This is P22's famous photo. We use him in the campaign. You have people advocating this all over the world, from obviously where the crossing is located, the LA area, to, we get donors from everywhere. You have the schools engaged. You have children who are learning about connectivity. And more so, Caltrans and transportation agencies, usually who are the bad guy, are being lauded as heroes here. So I think there's something to watch there. Next slide, please. We have P22 Day Festival, which Caltrans attends and does public outreach. We had 8,000 people in person the year before and 10,000 online this year. if you flip through the next slide, here are just some scenes from P22 Day where we do school curriculum about building crossings and kids do artistic presentations on stage. We've also taken a unique approach to fundraising and outreach. If you go to the next slide, we do a lot of retail projects. I have one on, the P22 sweater. We have masks, we have plushies. Next slide, we have trading cards. Virtual reality is the next slide. And we even have a but to your point, you passed, and I was very proud to see it, your equity statement. The next point, we take equity even in this campaign very seriously. And even though the crossing is nowhere near Watts, we are committed to investing in that community and do a lot of education, next slide, and outreach around bringing wildlife in P22 there, along with funding, next slide, murals in these communities who do have park deficit to bring wildlife there. So that's very important to us. And then let me just finish up with, we also, it's a Hollywood campaign. We do a lot of outreach in Hollywood. This was my last event before shutdown with Sean Penn. But what this results in, it's a lot of fun, but is the impact, and that's the next. We have over 1 billion media impressions worldwide on the story of the crossing, and a story just went out today. Go to the next slide. And then also this shows the result of when we did public comment. We had 8,800 for and 15 against. I think all of you on the commission know that's pretty unusual. And again, donors from across the world. Next slide. Governor Newsom himself, we gave a tour, almost an hour of the crossing, and he is very engaged and supportive of this project given his legacy. And I'll end with, again, California and California's transportation agencies are setting an example for the world, and they are watching this. National Geographic recently named us the best thing to look forward to in 2021. So my job is to help secure the rest of those funds to keep us on track for breaking ground in November. And we'd love the commission's thinking and thought around that. So thank you for your time today. And I'm glad the power stayed in for my presentation.
Wonderful. Well, what an excellent presentation. We have some comments. First, I'd like to make sure that we hear from Commissioner Kehoe, and then we'll check about public comment as well. Commissioner Kehoe, you're muted.
Better?
Perfect.
Okay. To Beth Pratt, thank you for the excellent presentation. Great photographs. Who doesn't want to look at a little wild kitten? But what it's a fabulous project. Everything you said about it is so encouraging and descriptive. I certainly hope we can figure out a way to help. You're good. But what I really want to say is to my old friend, or I should say longtime friend, Fran Pavley, thank you for giving me a heads up on this. It was great to connect with you. From the folks you mentioned, Mr. Stern, Sheila, and yourself and others, I know it's a gold-plated project, so I wish you well, and Happy New Year, and thanks again. And thanks for the update on the kittens. Fran just told me 4 litters this year, 3 bobcats near her home. So keep it up, Fran.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Hillary.
Absolutely. Do we have any public comment today?
Chair Norton, there is no public comment at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we want to also greet Senator Pavley and just to say thank you for her years of public service for California. And I will make one last request for commissioner comments. And seeing none, I want to thank you, Beth, for your great presentation. Do keep us informed of your events so that we as commissioners can be part of them. We'd love to lend support. And we want to thank you for a new take on safety as well, as we've been talking about safety today. And with that, I'd like to end this item. Tomorrow, we will begin our second day of our meetings at 9 a.m. and we will start with item 25. And with that, thank you very much. We are adjourned.